When you're dealing with corporate software, usually if there is still money left in the company, there is a way to replace you. It might be a bit awkward. It might be because you wrote the project in a really stupid way to make it hard to replace you. It might be written in a language that there's just not that many developers like a COBOL, but it can usually be done. When dealing with the open source space, though, it's a little bit more difficult because even in the case of popular distros, popular tools, foundational things that everybody relies on, and there should be a lot of people working on it, in a lot of cases, there is a singular person involved in everything. And things can get very messy when that person decides to step down, more so when that person has a bunch of projects to their name. Now, it can be done, but a lot of people like to say things like, fork the project, fork the project, fork the project. Why don't you fork the project? The power of open source is to fork the project. A lot of people like to say fork the project a lot more than they actually go and fork the project. Recently, Christian Hergert, formerly of Red Hat, put out this post. I am no longer employed by Red Hat. As a result, any project I maintain there as part of their employment should no longer be considered maintained by me, whether in that form of capacity or otherwise. Because those projects were solely maintained by me, they may now fall into an unmaintained state unless other community members step in. I am not available to maintain, review, or support them in any capacity for the foreseeable future. Whilst I talked about corporate software, Red Hat is a very interesting case because Red Hat pays a lot of people to work on open source projects. And when we're talking about Red Hat projects, replacing a person, that's easy enough. You just hire a new person and things are golden. But a lot of people who are paid to work on open source, let's say you're paid to work on KDE or paid to work on GNOME, let's say the shell part of it, for example. A lot of people in that role will work on additional surrounding technology because it makes sense to do so. If you're working on the core part of GNOME, it makes sense to work on the things, even though you're not being paid for them, that surround GNOME. As such, even if some of these are really important projects and sort of foundational libraries that everyone relies on, because they're kind of these disjointed, semi-related projects, it's not as easy to just say, oh, you can just fill that role now. In this comment, he linked to a blog post about what happened called Midlife Transitions. This was published back in February, so this actually happened a couple of months ago, but things are kind of in the same state as when this blog post was written, so it's more of a reminder being like, hey guys, there's a bunch of projects that you guys rely on that nobody is really maintaining right now. My focus here is going to be more on the project, but if you want to go and read the whole story about why he left Red Hat, feel free to go and do so. I'll leave the post link down below. The TLDR, though, is he wasn't really happy continuing to be in the United States of America and requested a transfer over to Red Hat's France office. Basically, they said no, he asked again, they said no again, he kept asking, they kept saying no, and eventually decided, I'm just done here. I'm just gonna leave. And now he is staying in France on a long stay visitor visa, which does not allow him to work there. This move also means a professional shift. I've dedicated a substantial portion of my time to maintaining and developing key components across the GNOME platform and its surrounding ecosystem. These projects are widely used, including in major Linux distributions and enterprise environments, and they depend on steady, ongoing care. For the better part of 2 decades, I've been putting in well beyond 40 hours each week maintaining and advancing this stack. That level of unpaid and ad hoc effort isn't something I can sustain, and my direct involvement going forward will be very limited. Given how widely this software is used in commercial and enterprise environments, long-term stewardship really needs to be backed by funded, dedicated work rather than spare time contributions. Whilst being considerably smaller cases, this is not the first time a sole maintainer has stepped down from a project, or even a sole maintainer has stepped down from a project within the GNOME ecosystem. Great examples being things like Dash to Panel, the main maintainer for that just stepped down, and I don't know if the project is still going now. Yes, okay, I guess somebody else got involved, or actually it looks like the original maintainer is still involved. So you passed the torch and came back. Right, okay, sure. We have things like the arc panel and, of course, libxml2. This was a really big one when this happened because there was a lot of not just GNOME software, but really big corporate software also relying on this, even though the developer was saying for years, stop doing that. This is not a good project. If you or your organization depend on this software, now is a good time to get involved, perhaps by contributing engineering time, supporting other maintainers, or helping fund long-term sustainability. The following is a short list of important modules where I'm roughly the sole active maintainer. This is not the entire list, but this is the most important stuff, and there's a lot on this list. GTK Source View, the foundation for editors across the GTK ecosystem. As of right now, the latest commit to this was about 2 weeks ago, and this was a translation commit. Before that, this project is pretty much just stalled. And you're gonna notice that as a very common trend throughout the rest of this video. Also, there have been a few opened issues, and basically what he's saying is, we might be able to do stuff, we might not, but like, I'm certainly not gonna be the one who is writing the code. Text editor, GNOME's core text editor. This is in pretty much the exact same state. There is a more recent translation, so hey, that's something, but pretty much everything since, the point of this post has pretty much just been translation work. That's basically it. No issues being closed in the past 2 months. It's basically what you'd expect. This one actually is a pretty big deal. Like the core text editor, even though I think it is kind of stupid that every single environment creates their own application suite, it is the way we do things. And this one, the fact that there was only a single maintainer and this hasn't had someone else take it over yet, that is kind of crazy to me. Pitixus, PTYX, the terminal that people like for GNOME that is not the GNOME terminal because it's just better than the GNOME terminal. The default terminal on Fedora, Debian, Ubuntu, RHEL, CentOS, Alma, Rocky, and a bunch of others. And how this only had a single maintainer, I know it's in like his personal repo, but how this only had a single maintainer, again, is absolutely beyond me. Just because a project is really popular doesn't mean that there is a bunch of people working on it. This is an idea that people need to get out of their head. Just because a lot of people know about a project, a lot of people talk about a project, doesn't actually mean a lot of people work on that project. Lib spelling, necessary bridge between GTK and Enchant 2 for spell check. Again, another one that sounds pretty important to me, and again, has translation work there. And that's basically it. Granted, in this case, its last closed issue was about 6 months ago. This is a lot slower moving of a project, so you would kind of expect there to be less changes being made to this one. SysProf, whole systems profiler integrating Linux Perf, Mesa, GTK, Pango, glib, WebKit, Mutter, and other statistics collectors. And again, need I even show you the repo? We have translation stuff. That's pretty much it. Builder, GNOME's flagship IDE. Frankly, I actually didn't even know they had an IDE. I guess it makes sense. Again, it's another one of those things where every environment has to have every application. And, well, yeah. Let's go to the issues and let's go to the closed issues. Oh, wait, nope. We've had some closed issues. Okay, this one had a bit of discussion. Things didn't go anywhere because it looks like they didn't need to go anywhere, but there was something. As for mergers, there was a Flatpak change about a month ago, and it looks like Jordan Petrus might be at least somewhat taking on a little bit of maintainership role. Not like a heavy role, but seems like he's at least doing something here. Template glib, templating and small language runtime for a scriptable G-object introspection syntax, and, well, a month ago there was a change, so a bit more recent. This is one of those ones which obviously doesn't need to change as much as some other ones. It only has 9 merge requests over its entire life. The last one was an entire year ago. This one's probably going to be fine for a long while without anyone really actively maintaining it. JSON RPC glib. This is in a very similar sort of boat. It doesn't really need to change a ton. Yes, having a maintainer there in case bugs are found is important, but it's probably going to be fine. libps, plugin library providing C, C++, Rust, Lua, Python, and JavaScript integration. This is another one which doesn't really need to change that much. It's pretty much just making sure it's in line with the modern version of GNOME, and after that point, it's pretty much going to be fine. This has more merge requests. The latest merge was about 2 months ago, and it's pretty much just bumping up dependencies. libdex, futures, fibers, and IOU ring integration. Again, another one where things don't really need to move a ton. There was a patch about 6 days ago. It seems like, at least to some extent, he is still partially maintaining this one. But, again, oh wait, 2 weeks ago. Oh, that's crazy. Who merged it? Yeah, Christian merged it. Okay, so this one he is still partially maintaining. GOM. GOM. Data object binding between G-object and SQLite. A very fun sounding... Do you kind of see why some of these don't have any maintainers? Whilst these are important, they're not exciting, fun projects, right? Like, they're not, core graphical, fun applications. It's like the boring foundational work that kind of needs to be there to make things function. But no one's gonna remember you because you worked on GOM or other various things like that. It's just not something where things tend to move that much. The latest merge was 5 months ago. Manuals. Document reader for our development platform. A incredibly fun sounding project. This one mainly has some translation work being done. That's pretty much it. Foundry. Basically builder as a command line program and shared library. Used by manuals and a future builder. Hopefully. It's got some translation work being done. Let's go to the merge request. Let's go to merged. About 2 months ago, so when he was still actively maintaining things. dspy. Introspect dbus connections. Another one that's super exciting sounding and probably also doesn't have that many merges to it. Wow, who would have ever guessed that? Something like dbus, which doesn't really change that often, is not really something that people really want to spend too much time on. libpanel provides IDE widgetry for complex GTK/libwaiter applications. And again, I can just keep doing the same bit. Like, I've done the same bit so many times. Now you already get the idea. And lastly, we have libmks, QEMU mouse keyboard screen implementation with DMA buff integration for GTK. And the last repo looks exactly... This went even further. Like, his last commit to main was 2 years ago. I don't know if you can even really call this one maintained. There are, of course, many other modules I contribute to, but these are the ones most in need of attention. I'm committed to making the transition as smooth as possible, and I'm happy to help onboard new contributors or teams who want to step up. My next chapter is about focusing on family and building stability in our lives, and I wish him the best of luck in doing so. Even though it does mean there isn't a immediate crisis where people need to jump in as quickly as possible, for the sake of the stability of GNOME, it's probably for the best that none of these are really fast-moving projects. A lot of these can pretty much be maintained with like minimal maintenance, ensuring they align with the new release, bumping dependencies, things like that, as you bring new people in who gain some sort of interest in maintaining these projects. Now, whether or not all of these are going to be maintained long-term is something that still needs to be answered right now. really none of them have continued maintenance. You will see merges from the administrator of the GNOME GitLab, the GNOME translation robot, things like that, and a couple of other little people here and there. But for the most part, pretty much none of these projects actually have a proper committed developer to work on issues. Because it's one thing if somebody comes along and then somebody else merges a patch, but someone who is there, who is actually willing to specifically look after this individual project. What we've talked about today is continually recurring problem in the FOSS space, and I think the main issue we see here is a lot of people just don't want to work on those foundational projects, those libraries, those things that people don't really see. And I don't mean like the big libraries. You know, there are people that work on GTK, there are people that work on Qt. I mean the stuff in the background, the stuff that even developers don't really think about, the glue that sort of holds everything together. A big environment everyone sees, like a GNOME, a Hyperland, an XFCE, people will see your contributions, they'll see the changes you make. But if you make a change to, I don't know, futures, fibers, and IOU ring integration, even most developers are not really thinking about that. And if you're working on open source, if you're not thinking about it, why would you even think to work on it? And it even happens with things that people do think about, like printing, for example, because printing is not something that most people are doing outside of like a corporate or education environment. So that already limits down the number of people who are even thinking about that being a problem. And then you gotta find someone who actually wants to work on improving that thing. So the fact that open source even works to begin with, the fact that there are people who want to work on these random little foundational libraries, genuinely insane that we've come this far. If you're looking for something that you want to go and take over, something that actually needs someone involved in it, not just another developer in a really popular project, check out any of these projects here. All of them need people working on them. Get involved with them and, hey, maybe make a change. But let me know. Let me know. What are your thoughts down below? Do you happen to work in any weird foundational library? Are you just as confused that anyone actually finds that exciting work? I would love to know. So let me know your thoughts down below. If you liked the video, go like the video, go subscribe as well. And if you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon subscribes daily bearer pay linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and I am the most foundational of all libraries.
Like this.